Shalom everyone, today we're reading Parashat Re'eh. Parashat Re'eh can be found in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 11, verse 26. Okay, there's no chapter in the Zohar about Parashat Re'eh, so we'll have to look for, it looks like the commentaries on Parashat Re'eh are scattered in other weekly parashot, but there is Zohar commentary on this parasha, but it is scattered in other parts of the Zohar. So what is this parasha? To remind everybody, the book of Deuteronomy, Sefer Devarim, is the book that is one thing, it's about one thing. Moses is giving a speech. The speech took about, I don't think he spoke that long, but he started on the first day of the month of Shvat, and 5 weeks later he left this world, went to the upper world. Joshua took over, and then the Israelites moved across the river Jordan to take the land of Israel. So basically the whole book of Devarim, Deuteronomy, is Moses' last speech, and probably it was given over a period of 5 weeks, as the Torah is teaching us, in some payments, which means different chapters. This one, Parashat Re'eh, Re'eh means see, which is a very interesting expression, which means how can you tell somebody to see? It's not that easy to make other people see. Although that's the basic idea of education. What does it mean, education? Is teaching people to see reality with tools they did not have before that. And when they have these tools, they probably could be more productive, efficient in problem solving, goal setting, any managing your life, managing your thoughts, managing anything in your life in order to achieve something. So the ability to see is a very precious commodity. Excuse me. Since the main problem people have is because we are limited as human beings, and every time we see something, which means we are witnessing or watching any kind of an issue, we are very limited in our ability to evaluate that issue, to know how to analyze it, and how to respond if that needs any kind of response for us. And as I say many times, how many times in our life, each one of us personally has experienced a situation in which we had a very set idea about anything in life. We knew this is right, this is the way it's being done, that's how you understand it, that's how you evaluate it, and then reality gave us a kind of a punch in the gut or in the face, and we realized that the way we evaluated, perceived the event, the idea was wrong, and how could I even think this way? And if you are a human being and you are alive, you experience that awakening and more than once in your life, which means you know that every idea we have about who, what, why, how has an expiration date, which means it takes a while. It could be few days, few months, few years, and then you realize that what your concept, your perspective, your understanding of something very important in your life was not complete, not efficient, and not good enough, and you need to upgrade that, that perception, that belief system. And it's all coming together to the word re'eh, to see, see. So it's all about seeing, it's all about sight or insight, which means there is sight, which is the way we see things, but that's inside that perspective of what is called inside the box. However, if you really want to move forward with your life, you need to learn how to see outside the box, and that's why it's called insight. You have to bring a sight from outside the box into the box, you know, our skull, within our 2 ears, into that place, and to be able to see things in an upgraded mode. This is basically the idea of what we call moving on with our lives. Again, if we have no ability to have insight, to bring the sight from the outside, and we are stuck in the box, and when somebody comes and offers another idea, another perspective, outlook at something important in our lives, and we say, nah, that's not my cup of tea. We know we have a case of a person that is locked inside his own box, which becomes his own or her own jail. When we study relationships, when we study about goal setting, career, it's all about learning to upgrade ourselves. That's why we acquire education. We go to school, we take courses, we take courses outside school curriculum, we go to university, all kinds of institutions, we study, we read books. It's all about expanding the box, outside the box, to bring another side from outside. So the whole parasha, the whole week should be around one thing. How do we upgrade ourselves to kind of beings that are more capable of bringing in sight, bringing the new sights in? That is one of the major keys of ascension. What does it mean? For a human being, we are creatures of growth and change. If we do not change every day, something terrible happens to us. We start to feel lack of hope, lack of positivity, lack of trust in the future. So we get stuck in the past. Because the moment you get stuck in the past, what does it mean? You're afraid of the future because you didn't change. You didn't bring no insight. And if you did not bring no insight, then your trust in life or in the future is hurt. And that is the base or the ground for negative outlook or attitude towards life, because you don't believe things are getting better. You don't think things can change. When we go to the origin of Abrahamic monotheism, it's all about developing insight, outlook, hope, which means that concept that we are part of a situation of humanity that is growing all the time, that is moving on all the time, that is developing all the time towards a brighter future. The whole idea of monotheism is based on the idea that everybody, all of us, came from a perfect state of unity with the Creator, And we came to this world because we have a desire or a drive to create the enlightenment, the perfection, the completion of our souls on our own. And therefore, we are part on an ongoing process that evolves, develops towards the good. And the whole messianic idea that is speaking about things are getting better, things will be better. And it's not something we can stop it. You cannot stop the ongoing process of humanity towards perfection. So when we are talking about insight, we're talking about Parashat Re'eh. It's about the idea to see reality always from a broader perspective, and that is the major grounds, foundations of positive thinking, of a believing or really having faith in the main idea of what we call the modern values of modern society, which is based on every human being has the right for happiness, which means happiness is something that is coming, something that we all deserve. And if you don't have it today, you'll have it tomorrow, if not tomorrow, the next day, and your children, because if society is based on that idea that every human being has the right for happiness, which means we were born, it's our birthright, we are born for that purpose. Now, it's all connected, and you'll see in this parasha, to that word Re'eh, which is the name of the parasha. By the way, Re'eh is also the only parasha that its name is one of the 72 names of God. And the number 72 and the 72 names of God, it's all about the idea of ascension, that we are here in order to ascend, to transform, to reach out of the box to something much greater that is awaiting all of us, because we are part of that great creation which is called humanity. So, after this introduction, we can read the text, and again, Deuteronomy chapter 11, verse 26. ראה אנוכי נותן לפניכם היום ברכה וקללה. And again, I am offering you, Moses is saying, I'm telling you, I'm showing you, that's what it says, in front of you, I'm showing you today the blessing and a curse. Verse 27, the blessing, את הברכה אשר תשמעו על מצוות אדוני אלוהיכם אשר אנוכי מצווה אתכם היום, והקללה אם לא תשמעו על מצוות אדוני אלוהיכם וסרתם מן הדרך. The blessing means when you listen to the mitzvot, to the precepts of the Lord your God, that I am giving you today. And the curse, that's verse 28, if you don't listen. And the Or HaChaim HaKadosh, Rabbi Chaim Ben Atal, and a great, great Moroccan Kabbalist that finally moved to Jerusalem in the 17th century and is buried just in front of the Temple Mount of Mount Olives, one of the most famous graves in the Mount Olives cemetery. And he says over there, what does it mean? What's the reason, or what's the meaning of all of that concept? Okay? And the answer is, he says, there are a few things. First of all, what he says to see, and we see later on this, the whole parasha is going around that verb to see. Now, re'eh Re'eh is, we will see that later on. Let's see the next verse it's being mentioned. If we continue the parasha, let's say chapter 12, verse 5. It speaks about כי אל המקום אשר יבחר אדוני אלוהיכם מכל שבטיכם לשום את שמו שם, לשכנות ידרשו ובאת שמה. There will be a place, the place, that God will choose for you to put his name, which means a place that the temple is going to be built. And you will come to that place. And in that place you will bring your offerings and your gifts. This is the place you're going to pray, going to be the pillar of your prayer. Continues on again. The same concept will appear at the end of the parasha. It will appear a few times. Again, the end of the parasha, chapter 16 in Deuteronomy, verse 16. שלוש פעמים בשנה יראה כל זכורך את פני אדוני אלוהיך. 3 times a year, every male of you will be seen, the same verb, to see, in front of the Lord your God, in the place that he is going to choose for you, in the holiday of Passover, Shavuot, and Sukkot. Okay? So what is the connection over here? What's the connection between the place of the temple and site? Let's go to Genesis. Genesis, where we read the story of the binding of Isaac, the end of the binding of Isaac, that speaks always about it through the whole story many times, that it's talking about the place, again, the same word exactly, that the Torah in Parashat Re'eh is relating to the place of the temple as the place, not a place, the place, okay? The special place. And that special place, when we read the story of the binding of Isaac, at the end, after the angel of God tells Abraham, do not touch the lad. And then he says, I realize that you passed the test and you really have faith in God. And then it says, ויקרא אברהם את שם המקום, השם יראה אשר יראה בהר השם יראה. And Abraham calls the place, God will see. And whatever God is showing will be seen in this place. What's the name of the place? Again, the verb again is the verb sight, to see, which means there's something about sight. And here we read this parasha always in the month of Leo, Aryeh. Aryeh, the same letters as Re'iyah, sight. And we know without sun, the ruling planet of Leo, you can't see anything. Okay? But it's more than that. We know that with the power of the sun, people that are born under the sign of Leo, who have a rising Leo, moon in Leo, whatever, they have an enhanced ability to see what other people cannot see. It's mean vision. A lot of great leaders have a very strong influence of the month of Leo. Aryeh, the ability to see. We cannot be a king, a real king, if you cannot see what others cannot see. Okay, that's what about leadership, about the vision, which is another word for seeing, for sight. And that means that we, all of us, during this week, in the month of Leo, we want to connect to that special ability to see, to have a sight, to have an insight that will upgrade our perspective of life, because we need that because the countdown towards the new year has started just 2 weeks ago on the 9th of Av. So the countdown is starting, and we need to work on a different insight, because we know, everybody who has a business knows, for the new year you need to reevaluate, redefine your goals, your vision, your sight, because otherwise you have a problem with moving the engine of your career, of your development, as an individual, as a group, as a community, or as humanity. So this is the special thing about this week of Parashat Re'eh. But there's a midrash that says in Bereshit about that name that Abraham is giving the place. The name is giving the place to see, Re'iyah. But we know that in Hebrew the word Re'iyah, the midrash is saying, is also connected to the word, the same letters, Yir'ah, awe, A-W-E, awe. So when we have awareness, a change of awareness, that's how we grow, that's how we transform. And the midrash is saying, where do you have real, true awe? When you experience something with a nature of real completion, something that is really whole. That's when you feel true awe. Awe is not fear. Fear is when you're afraid of something that can hurt you. Could be something more powerful than you. Okay? But you could be afraid also of mice. They can hurt you, they're not more powerful than you, but they have the power to hurt you. Or cats, or any kind of mosquitoes and stuff like this. They're smaller. When we are talking about the real good awe, that is the essence of transformation and growth, we're talking about having awe that means having insight. How great is the Creator, the creation. And in order to do that, you need to have an experience, a feel of, or a touch, a connection to something greater, bigger, that has that feel of completion. And therefore, when in the binding of Isaac that happened, in the place that later on King David declared as a place for the temple, and later on King Solomon built the first temple, and on the same location the second temple is being built. And this is the place that Jews from all over the world, for thousands of years, 3,000 years already, when they pray, they send their consciousness to pray in that location. Okay, so, and we know that the other Abrahamic monotheistic religions, they also see that place as a center for praying and for connecting to something of high. So you see that when we're talking about Re'eh, it's not just that, it's like it's something of a higher nature. And let me explain. We're going into the words of the Orach Chaim HaKadosh, again, Rabbi Chaim Ben Attar, that we started to explain before. And he says like this, נראה שהכוונה היא, it looks like the intention, Moses' intention or goal saying these words, היא כי לפי שבא להבחירם בעולם העליון ולהמעיט כל טובות העולם הזה, since his goal was to help the Israelites, and that means us reading this parasha, help us choose to connect to the world to come. To connect, now in Hebrew it's Olam Haba, and he says over here, Olam Elyon, the upper divine world, which means the internal, upper dimension of this reality. And he's saying why he wants us to choose that reality, because this reality is so rich, so powerful, so full, so fulfilling, which means the only true fulfillment we can experience, and that's continuing the line of thought of last week's parasha, Parashat Ekev, when the person realizes that when you are focusing yourself only on the physical world that the five senses can perceive, understand, touch, feel, and so on, you're limiting yourself. You're really limiting yourself. While the real, true richness is existing only in the divine world, in the world beyond the five senses. And Moses is basically saying, you want a blessing or a curse? What is the blessing? So the Or HaChaim HaKadosh is saying the blessing is when you can really feel authentically that the divine world is really the source of all true lasting fulfillment. Okay? That is the blessing. While the curse is when you really cannot relate to the spiritual dimension. So you're trying in a crazy drive running towards physical experiences only. What can really make me happy? You know, all the stuff the five senses can give me. Could be money, could be food, could be luxury, could be all of that stuff that you must use the physical body to acquire them. And if you do that, that's what he's saying over here. This is the curse. Why? You will never be truly satiated. You can have a momentary, short-lived fulfillment of an excitement. Same thing. You have a great dinner. Okay? You eat the best food. So how long would the joy and the fulfillment last? And if you overeat, it can turn easily from pleasure into intense suffering and misery. Okay, when you're bloated, especially if you overate, everybody knows what I'm talking about. Then you hate yourself because you're heavy, you have all kinds of other reactions that everybody has. Every person has different reactions to different kinds of foods. It doesn't stay. So the promise, I'll eat that great food and that will make me happier, that's a curse. That's a curse. Why? When you really focus only on the physical joy and pleasure, this is very limited. It's stuck inside the box. So that's what Moses is saying. I really want you to understand what are your choices. You can choose to connect to the upper world. What is about the upper world? The upper world is about the endless reality of the real true creation, which is the source of all true lasting fulfillment. This is a blessing to be able to focus on that. So, and then the commentator, the Or HaChaim HaKadosh is saying, and that is very important that Moses says it and not Aaron, for instance, or somebody else. Why? Remember, we are talking about a nation of slaves that got out of Egypt. After they left Egypt, they walked in the desert for 40 years. They ate the manna from heaven and they drank water from the stone, which means there were no, I can assure you, there were no theme parks on the way or luxury hotels. There were no chef Michelin restaurants on the road. And here comes Moses and tells them, look, you have to choose consciously on a daily basis. You have to choose the divine world to connect to it, because if you don't want it, it's not going to be there for you. You need to focus on it. You have to be determined about it, and you really need to want it. If not, what's left is only the five senses. It's only the material world. And if you're connected to the material world only, you have a big problem. Now, why does Moses have to be the one who says it? Because Moses, remember, till 40 years old, he grew up in the house of Pharaoh. So as someone who experienced the most luxurious kind of life humanity had to offer at that generation. And he says, believe me, I've been there. And you don't want to go there. You don't want to go there because I've seen them. It's all fake. Yes, they have the best food. They live in the most beautiful palaces. But there's nothing to compare that to connecting to the real, true world that is full of awe because it is awesome. It's awesome because it is so much spiritual light. This parasha is about that. Where can you feel that kind of alignment with awesome power? In Jerusalem, in the temple, in that place that where the heavens meet the earth, and it's easier to connect to that original awe, because the awe, when you choose that, our sages are saying, basically, what is free will is to choose between the awe of heaven, which means to connect to that awesome reality that is beyond the five senses, that is the insight, or to choose the five senses reality. The rest is, or it's not your choice anymore. When you choose awe, that means that you get insight. That means that you can see reality in the best way for you for that moment. The result will be a whole line of thought that is affected from that awe, from that bigger perspective, that you will be able to see what you need to see in order to get where you need to get. Okay? Remember, as we said before, how many times we find that the way we saw things, the way we perceive things, had an expiration date. It's very limited. So how do I know how to make the right choice? Who to get married with? Where to live? What kind of a job should I take? Which kind of offer should I take? Which kind of offer should push away because it's not for me? How would I know? How many times we made great, powerful decisions like this, and we thought it's an amazing decision, amazing choice, and later on we realized, how could I be so blind? It was written on the wall, I did not see. Why couldn't I see? When you don't have that re'eh, that insight that this parasha is offering, you will see, we will see, a kind of reality that will force us to face our limitation, to face our mistakes, to realize that we are so limited, that being right is not what we're here for. We're here to connect to the awesome experience of the light. That will bring the right perception that will put our finger on the right choice. And that's exactly what the Or HaChaim is saying. Therefore, in the same note, we have a very, very famous law in chapter 12, verse 1. את כל הדבר שאנוכי מצווה אתכם אותו, everything that I tell you to do, offer you to do, all the precepts that I'm commanding you to do, you should observe to do, and we explain about why using these two verbs, to observe, to watch, which is watchfulness and awareness, and the action. And we said it has to be not just doing the physical right thing, but to do it with the right awareness. And I explained it a lot last week's Parashat Ekev. It has to be in both dimensions. It's not enough to be okay and to be right and to make the right decision based only on five senses reality only. But then it says, "Lo tosef alav velo tigra mimeno." Do not add on it and do not remove from it anything. Which means the 5 books of Moses give us a set of laws that are very, very exact. It was given on Mount Sinai with two dimensions: the written law, the 5 books of Moses, and the oral law, the understanding of all the different dimensions of every law. That was written later on in a huge project that is the Mishnah and the Talmud. The Mishnah was canonized in the 3rd century, the Talmud in the 6th century, and then the project went on with huge body of commentaries and explanations in the next generation, still today. How do you apply that law to your life? And he says very clearly, if somebody comes and tells you to change the law, let's say instead of doing Shabbat on Shabbat, do it on Sunday or Friday. It's very clear. Do not add, do not remove anything from it. This is the law. Very simple. Okay? And then the next verse, and then it says, and there will be a prophet or somebody who's a dreamer, and he will make all kinds of miracles and will say, you see the miracles? It's a sign that I am a new prophet from God, and he will tell you to change the law. Okay? That's only a test, says Moses. Do not listen to that prophet or that dreamer, because God is testing you. Do you really love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul? Because it's very clear what was said. If somebody comes with all the miracles in the world, with all the omens, and tells you to change the law, to change, that's a test. Okay? If you are in awe, you don't need anyone to come and tell you to change the laws. You will look at that and say, like, what are you trying to tell us? It's like Rabbi Akiva's story that he was saying, it's like a fox coming to the river, and he sees the fish, and he tells the fish, you know, I want to tell you, in the forest, life is much, much better. Come up and live with me. Of course, he has an agenda. When they come up to the forest, then they cannot run away from him, the fish. He can eat them up. And they tell him, you want us to come to a place that is our death? We know that we'll die in the forest. We can live in the water and leave us alone over here. That's the same thing of that prophet or somebody that in the name of a great prophet or miracle maker, you know, there's a nicer place. And they said, no, 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 we are fish, we live in the water. You can't offer us another place. What does it mean to live in the water? We live within the boundaries of the Torah, and as long as we live there, we know we can breathe, we can multiply, we can really exist. But you want to offer us to move to another place? We can't exist in something like this because the boundaries are not there. So this is an amazing perception of this parasha. And so we have to be, and of course, in our generation, people are looking around all kinds for miracle makers, for people who connect to angels, to planets, to other galaxies. You know, the weirder the idea, the bigger is the following. Well, we have something that was given so many years ago. It's still vibrant, it's still alive. These are the values and the ideas of the Torah. And as we said before, these values are so powerful. Yes, once in a while, we can say people are trying to rebel those values. For instance, communism, Nazism, fascism. What did they try to do? The ideas and the values of the Bible are limited. The time is up. Religion has no place in our life anymore. So we can, as humans, we are smart enough to invent our own laws, our own system of laws, and we live an amazing utopia. And we all know the hell that was created by communism. So many people were murdered, tortured in the name of the great new religion, communism. Same thing with fascism and Nazism. It was all in the name of the greater good. And even today, still people are trying to turn their backs to the basic ideas of the Torah. You cannot run away from it. You can try to fight it. Still, do not kill is do not kill. Do not steal is do not steal. Still, all those laws are still vibrant. And as much as you're going to try to reinvent new religions, man-made religions, it's not going to work. Those values are still changing humanity. So people are saying, if you read newspapers and you're watching the media, everything is getting worse and worse with the time. And I don't agree to that. How do we know? How many of us really want to live 100 years ago? You know what? 50 years ago. So, there's a romanticization of 50 years ago. The point was that 50 years ago, without the media that we have today, there were so many atrocities, but we had no idea about them because we were told what is right and what is wrong. And if you just go on in the groove, you'll be okay. Today, we are being given much bigger freedom of choice, and we're exposed to so many ideas. Is that a curse? No, it's just an option for all of us to look for that great awe, which is when you open our eyes and we look up there, that there is something so much greater that is there just for one purpose, to give us, as it says over here, to give us the greatness, the fulfillment, the happiness we are all born for. And that's why you read in chapter 14, verse 1, Banim atem la'Adonai Elohechem. You're all God's children. Therefore, behave as such. Which means, on one hand, you know that father's love to his children is, and we are talking our Father in heaven, is unconditional. And that means that we are there. That's a concept of modernism, that every human being has the right for happiness. That's a basic on all the idea behind democracy and modern rule. Can we really think that all the governments of the free democratic world behaved like this in the last century? No. But we are moving towards it, and we know all changes are painful. Just 30 years ago, a little bit over 30 years ago, most of the world was behind the Iron Curtain. That was living hell. Now, the world is much more open, much more free. Does that mean we are perfect? No, we have no patience. We want the perfection to be right now. We want somebody, to go to the elections, to vote for somebody that within, 10 days, even 100 days after the inauguration of the new government, everything will be perfect. And that's very childish. Remembering that we live in a world that is always evolving. Yes, there are pains, there are learning process, but first of all, humanity must study and learn that we cannot just be materialistic. So it's like the test that God is giving us in this generation. You think that if you have enough food, housing, everything, you'll be happy? You know what? I'll give you all of it. We have more food, most in our society, than we can digest. So we throw out so much. We have more houses than we can live in. You know how many people have few houses? Okay? We can build more housing than people. All of it is one thing. The moment we are focusing just on the mundane, materialistic dimension, this is very painful, and humanity is realizing that. This is not a curse. This is a blessing. It's all to help us to choose the spiritual dimension, which is our calling. Thank you so much. Shavua Tov.